How's everybody doing tonight? Come on, you're doing better than that. How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah. Are there any happy people in here? I just want to talk a little bit today about the habits of happy people. There are some things that I have learned, and before I really get started, you probably should know a little bit about me. In Charleston, South Carolina, I was born and raised on the playground is where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, maxing and relaxing, all cool, and shooting some b-ball outside of school when a couple of guys who were up to, okay, you guys get it, right? Actually, that's when I first learned a little bit about leadership. It was playing basketball, and they were about to demolish the basketball court in my neighborhood. And at 10 years old, I huddled up a group of guys, and we marched down to the civic meeting, and we demanded, if you will, that they would not remove our basketball court. And to this day, that basketball court is still up. Yeah, round of applause for leadership, right? The reality is my entire life has been one big pursuit of happiness. I started there in Charleston, South Carolina, but I was just trying to figure out what many people try and figure out: how can I be happy? And so I thought happiness was in attaining wisdom or learning as much as you could or accumulating wealth. That's what I thought. And so I started out on this journey, like just going to school and just trying to be as educated as I possibly could. And wouldn't you know, I ended up becoming the valedictorian. Yeah, thanks for the round of applause. Yeah. Man, I was the valedictorian of my kindergarten class, but still, I was the valedictorian. My valedictorian speech was reciting the alphabets. And that was the beginning of my journey in which I was trying to pursue happiness. I continued my educational journey, and one of the greatest things that I think could ever happen to someone, and that is to be recognized by their peers, happened to me. And so here I was as a senior in high school, and I was recognized by my peers as the most likely to succeed. Thank you. What a day that was. Now, and I was homeschooled, so I didn't really have any peers, and I was voted by my mom, but you guys get the point, right? Still, I was the most likely to succeed in my class. And you know, there's something that I noticed. I noticed that it didn't matter how much I was learning, because after that, I went on to the University of South Carolina, and then the Citadel, and then the University of Alabama, and I graduated from the University of Alabama, and what an incredible time that was. I thought learning as much as you could was the essence of the pursuit of happiness, until a much older, much wiser lady told me that we live and learn, and then we die and forget it all. And so I had to really just try and figure out what really is happiness. And so I got a job after I graduated, and I bought my first luxury car. I always wanted a Lexus SUV, and I purchased it. I've been making some money, and so I purchased it, and for a moment I was very happy, until I was sitting in Walgreens one day, and someone literally just backed right into my Lexus SUV and basically destroyed it. And so I had to quickly learn that there's a difference between the feelings of happiness that are often fleeting, feelings that we have, and happiness as a state of being. Went on to get engaged, because I thought, well, happiness is really all about having kids and getting married, not necessarily in that order. And I thought, well, that's what it's all about, to start a family. Until I realized that I was engaged to the wrong person at the time, and I had to call it off. Really, I was the most unhappy that I had ever been. So now I went into this period of just trying to figure out, oh my goodness, what makes a person happy? And, you know, in the 80s, there was this thing called mood rings that was supposed to tell us whether or not we were happy. As early as 1989, there was this creation of something called the emoji, where it was really supposed to depict happiness, either in a text or in some type of correspondence. Our mobile devices now have facial recognition, and they're really supposed to tell us whether or not we are happy if we're smiling, or if we're sad, or maybe even disgusted. Our cars actually speak to us now, and they tell us when we're tired and we need to pull over for a cup of coffee. I have been searching for happiness, and I realized that my search led me to a pretty difficult place. You see, I became a complainer because, yeah, I came into that line. I was in the complainer line because I thought it was all about accumulating things. And from complaining to trying to search and trying to seek, I can tell you what happiness ain't. Happiness is not about chasing stuff or accumulating wealth, or gaining some type of notoriety. It's not about your status, and it's not about money. As a matter of fact, science says that there is no direct correlation between having a lot of money and being happy. It says that there is a basic level of wealth that a particular person can have, and if you're underneath that basic level, if you don't have money, in other words, you can be unhappy. But just because you have a lot of money doesn't make you any more happy. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, I have an example for you. I actually was watching television one morning, and it probably was Good Morning America or something like that, and I noticed that there was this actress named Julia Roberts that was on television, and she was crying profusely. I was trying to figure out what was she crying about, and I thought to myself, now, wait a second, she's crying. She appears very sad. She certainly doesn't look happy. And I realized that she, at the time, was making $20 million a movie. Even today, she makes $765,000 a day for her craft. But she wasn't happy. She wasn't happy because she left her fiance at the altar. She called it off a day before the wedding, and then she got married to another guy, and then her and that guy, they ended up getting divorced, and now she's on the brink of separation again. And so if you think that your happiness is tied into money, that's not what the science suggests. Science actually suggests that we can choose to be happy. If you look on the Amazon site or on Google, you'll notice that there are thousands of titles with advice on the 7 habits of this, or the 9 choices of this, or the 10 secrets of this. And there are thousands of ways that are supposed to bring you happiness. Another way that people often try and attain happiness is through medication. And it has become, based on one estimate, $500 billion industry on people that are using drugs like Prozac and the like to become happy. As a matter of fact, it is such an incredible business that it represents 8% of world trade. These routes to happiness, they really don't increase happiness that much. The World Health Organization actually says people that are trying these routes are people that will contribute to depression being the second largest cause of disability by the year 2020. So it's sadness, it's anxiety, it's depression, and it has led to suicide rates that are astronomical. Believe it or not, and I didn't believe this, so believe it or not, more people in this country and around the world commit suicide than homicide. And if you don't think that the media will manipulate our happiness, the media, when it often reports gun violence, it talks about gun violence against another person, but there are far more people that commit gun violence against themselves. Often there's some type of a mental illness or something associated with that, but very, very often it's because of depression or anxiety or stress. So now that everybody is depressed, what truly makes us happy? What truly makes us happy? Well, I really don't know. But I can tell you what got me to a state of being of happiness. And it started with this. It started with me understanding this concept that I read in the Bible from Psalms 144, and it says, "Happy are the people whose God is the Lord." I kept reading, and in Matthew, it says, instead of trying to seek happiness, seek God, and all other things will be added to you. And I kept reading, and there's another verse that says that in great fulfillment is contentment. So I kept researching, and I stumbled upon this story of two dogs that were searching for happiness, and they actually had a conversation with one another. They were getting pretty close to this concept that we're trying to discover now called happiness. And the story goes that the first dog said to the second dog that, "I have discovered happiness, and I realize that happiness is in my tail. And so I'm going to chase my tail until I can attain it, and once I do, I will have attained happiness." And then the second dog said to the first dog, "I too believe I have discovered the source of happiness, and I too believe that it is in my tail. But instead of chasing my tail, I'm going to allow my tail to chase me. And as a result, I will be happy." If we think about that, this story that I heard years ago, and it just seemed a little bit of a paradox at the time, but if you think about that, instead of always chasing after things and then you receive it and it's like, that didn't really make me happy, and not appreciating the things that we have, what if we didn't just constantly chase things to make us happy, but we appreciated the things that we have? And so I think today there is a new definition for happiness. Instead of constantly pursuing things, seeking things to make us happy, happiness can be found in appreciating what we already have. And so I learned to count my blessings instead of always being in that line of complaining. And it finally hit me one day when someone said, if you could exchange your life for any other person, who would it be? And I thought, at that time, which began this unbelievable trajectory for me of being happy, I thought there's no one else that I'd want to be. I'll take my bank account, I'll take my accumulation of stuff, I'll take my friends, some of them I'll exchange for from time to time, but you get it. I'll take my family, I'll take my education, and even if all of that went away, I'll be grateful for the experiences, grateful for the memories. That, for me, allowed me to understand happiness. Now, and I'll say this last piece, and then I want to just let you know that there's some common things that I think all happy people have. But before I get into that, there are some people that seem happy on the outside. It's called the pulchritudinous part. It's the outward expression where they're always smiling, but often there's deep brokenness on the inside. If you've ever known someone to just be completely jubilant on the outside, but then when you talk to them, it's like, man, it seems like there's always something going on. That's those folks. And so I'm not just talking about someone who's constantly on the outside seeming bubbly. I'm talking about someone who genuinely has a state of gratitude for where they are. And so there are about 10 things that I have learned, and I will begin to conclude with this, about 10 things that I've learned that happy people have in common. 10 things. And this is based on practical psychology. There are 10 things, and I'll talk pretty fast on this and get us to that point. So these are the 10 habits of happy people. Now, the first thing is that we all could achieve happiness. Remember, happiness is a choice, and it starts with being grateful. We all have the opportunity to be grateful, to live an attitude of gratitude. If you got up every day and you're like, you know what, today is just going to be the worst day of my life, that ain't the attitude of gratitude. We actually can speak some of those things into existence. Scientifically, our brain stretches down a path that allows us to be happy if we're grateful. And so I think you can actually start your day with positivity. It correlates with your brain, and that's what the science says. The second thing that I think that we can learn is optimism. Yes, optimism. And this isn't just a blind optimism. This is the optimism that says that I can find meaning in the world and purpose for myself. Optimism versus a realistic optimism. So optimism that's blind says that all will be well. A realistic optimism says all will be well, but I'm going to do my part to make it happen. Regardless of what that means, I can balance out those two things. The Bible calls it faith and works. And so we all have a part to play. And it starts with saying something as simple as, today's going to be great. And even if you think it's not going to be, you chart that course. The third thing is, happy people smile a lot. Now, it's not forcing a smile. The science actually goes against that. It's a result of the other two things. The fact that you're grateful and the fact that you're optimistic, realistically optimistic. You will be able to smile, and in actuality, if you tried to prevent yourself from smiling, you really couldn't do so. We do this by surrounding ourselves with friends and family and maybe doing something as simple as riding a bike. The fourth thing that I want to share is that happy people have a lot of friends. Now, it's not just any type of friend, but these are authentic, healthy friendships. These are the friendships that when we look around, it adds meaning to our life. These are the friendships that can provide accountability for us. These are the friendships that actually make us happy. When we see them calling, our heart actually skips a beat instead of our heart dropping and saying, oh, I would prefer not to talk to that person at this particular time. That's what a true friend can do. Friends can make you happier, which means number 5 is that we actually have to weed out the bad friends. We have some friendships that really produce toxicity. There are friendships that don't make us happy. There are friendships that bring us down. There are friendships where brokenness is exposed, but people aren't really on the right path. And at the end of those conversations or at the end of those seasons, we look around and we're like, oh my goodness, I really wish that I had chosen another time to talk with you. And I know you don't want to be rude, but the reality is sometimes if you're going to be happy, you'll have to weed out those bad friends. The next thing is that happy people, this is a commonality, we take frequent breaks. Yeah, the science suggests that employers that allow their employees to take frequent breaks, they actually get more productivity out of their workforce. There's Asian philosophy that says that we should actually take naps after lunch. And so I try to practice this as often as I can. As a matter of fact, I'll be talking to somebody one day, and if they're not making me happy, I'll just start checking my eyelids and I'll just check out. Yep, every now and again. You can get more work done if you take the frequent breaks. It's sort of like if you're working out, you don't want to just continue to work out. You want to actually take breaks in between your reps. The 7th thing is that happy people, they set goals. Not just any goal, but smart, achievable goals. These are goals that allow you to actually get in the zone. That's what athletes call it, or artists, they actually call it getting in the flow. This is an opportunity for us to say, you know what? I can be motivated by checking something off because I've created something that's attainable, and then something else that's attainable. And the next thing you know, there's this euphoric state that I found myself in because I've had a productive day. The next thing is, happy people, believe it or not, they do get sad. But this type of sadness is just a feeling. And when we get sad, we learn from our sadness. Now, this can sound a little bit complicated, but here's what actually happens. We get sad, we learn from our experience, because experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And then we take the time to read books or to go on YouTube and learn, or we learn a new instrument. So again, you can learn from a mistake that makes you sad, but you can also learn from an experience that you just create on your own, like learning to play the guitar or learning to play the piano. Your brain stretches in such a way that you say, wow, I just accomplished something. And this is not just something that you can do in order to be happy, but this is a commonality that happy people exhibit. The next thing is that happy people, they take care of themselves. And by taking care of yourself, you know that it's just not taking care of yourself, but taking care of yourself first. The old adage when you get on an airplane is that you're supposed to put your mask on first, secure your mask, and then you can help others, because there are many people that end up unhappy because instead of securing their mask, they try and go and help other people first. And then now both people are broken. I've seen this happen even when people were trying to save others from drowning, and then they would lose their own lives. The 10th thing is that happy people help people. They understand the value of helping others. Happy people, this is a commonality for all of the folks that have a state of being, not just a fleeting feeling. We understand that it doesn't matter if we are having great multitudes of success or magnitudes of success, which means if we're able to affect tens of thousands of people or if it's just one person, we help people. Because life is not just about us. Life is about what we can do to serve others, what we can do to be in community with others. That's what happy people both have in common, and that's what they understand. And so you learn something from our experiences. You learn how you can be in community with others. You ask questions so that you can figure out, how can I best be in a state of being that's happy instead of just a fleeting feeling that's happy. And I want to say, it really doesn't matter who you are or where you are. You can do this. So let's review. There are 10 things that I found. The first thing that I found that allows us to be happy is we have an attitude of gratitude. Happy people are grateful. The second thing is that we're optimistic. The third thing is that we understand the concept of smiling a lot, not forced smiling. The fourth thing is that we have high-quality, valuable friends, which means that we have to reduce the negative friendships that we have with us. The sixth thing is that we have a commonality where we take frequent breaks. All of us will take naps or breaks, and that allows us to be more productive. The next thing is that we set attainable goals. The eighth thing is that when we get sad, we learn something. The ninth is that we take care of ourselves first, and then finally, happy people help people. And so if you think life is about how shiny your car is, or how many kids you have in private school, or how many cars you have in your garage, or how many degrees you have on your wall, or how many acres your house sits on, how many jobs you have, maybe even how many friends you have, how many stamps you have on your passport. If you think life is about that, I'm here to tell you, I have learned that when we die, all of us will go into a grave, and our grave is the same size. And so happiness really is about appreciating what we have instead of always seeking for more, surrounding ourselves with healthy people that want to help people. Thank you.